We appreciate all of you taking time to attend this competition. Your support is appreciated by the competitors. At this time, we ask the competitors to please come and take your place up front. As our room chair has mentioned, the competitors have been briefed on the competition and realize that their general discussion should be directed at each other rather than the audience. As moderator, I will not attempt to control or direct this discussion. Remember, the discussion is meant to simulate a committee meeting, not a panel discussion, with point, counterpoint, and an active moderator. As such, I will not intervene unless or until disparaging or inappropriate remarks are made. With that in mind, the burden is on the competitors to moderate themselves and conduct themselves in a cooperative and congenial manner. Please no writing until all competitors are seated. The competitors are Sydney Hill, Andrew Mickelson, Brittany Stagelmeyer, and Trent Van Leuven. The topic for this round is with abundant productivity, farmers are in need of new markets, including outside traditional food and feed channels. How do we develop, invest, and commercialize to innovate new uses of agricultural products and byproducts to benefit all of agriculture? We will begin this discussion with 1 minute of quiet time during which each competitor will be able to prepare their 30-second opening statement. Following the opening statements, they will have 20 minutes of open discussion followed by 1 minute of quiet time for the competitors to prepare their 1 minute closing statement. Official time is kept by the timekeeper. At this time, competitors, you have 1 minute to prepare your opening statements. Time has been called. Competitors, in voluntary order, make your 30-second opening statements. Please stand and direct your opening statements to the audience. The timer will indicate when your 30 seconds have elapsed by holding up a red card. You may begin.
So I grew up in a family of 8, and as you can imagine, we didn't go out to eat very often. Well, one evening we found ourselves in a restaurant. What was the occasion? See, my dad was a member of the board of directors for the Dairy Farmers of America, and he was really excited about a new product that they had invested in. And what was this new product? Well, the world's never been the same since the advent of cheese-stuffed crust pizza. You see, all new products that we have that we can market, they follow an investment by individuals like cooperatives.
Farming can't be standardized. Making educated choices in the market is something that farmers can do using programs through Farm Bureau and other organizations to help their individual farms succeed in the market that's ever changing, including reaching into local feed options.
Historic production rates coupled with vanishing foreign markets has left a surplus of agriculture commodities, and farmers' desire is for new ways to utilize them. Meanwhile, public demand has sent businesses scrambling to find new products and processes that are plant-based and environmentally friendly. To capitalize on this crossroads, we must now decide how best to convey to investors, businessmen, and governmental officials that the answer to their problem is already growing in our fields.
In the last century, American farmers have increased their yield by more than 5-fold. Simply put, American farmers are overproducing, even while using their excess production for energy, fiber, cosmetics, plastics. With that, we have to find new uses for agricultural products. I believe that through strategic partnerships with corporate partners, with grants, with research, maybe even Kickstarter projects, we can find new and innovative uses for agricultural products to move ag into the future.
You have heard the opening statements. The competitors may now proceed with the discussion. Competitors, please direct your discussion to your fellow panel members.
Who would have thought that we would be so good at our jobs that we are producing ourselves out of it? And not to make light of a very serious situation, I know I have never personally been affected by this, but when I was in high school, I witnessed a potato dump. And Andrew, you're a potato farmer, and so you might be more familiar with this, but it stung. As producers, we are emotionally invested in our crops because we do care about agriculture. And as we look to producing enough food for a growing population while balancing finding new products, I think that's going to be an interesting part of our conversation today. Andrew, you talked about kickstarts. What other type of investment opportunities do we have available?
You know, as I looked at it, I really think that that is the key that we're going to have to look at, is that new innovation. I don't think that we can do it solely upon some different markets. I look at, like, we got agritourism. It's going to help, but I don't think that's the solution to all the farmers' staying in business. As I looked at it, 2 years ago, the discussion at the annual level, that's what they talked about, was the Kickstarter idea of maybe as these farmers have these ideas, trying to funnel, whether it's a Farm Bureau-like competition like this, or something else, so that when farmers have really creative ideas on how to use those commodities, there's a way for them to get out there, get their idea heard, and hopefully commercialize it and bring it into production.
Andrew, I like how you mentioned all of that, but I think that as we're looking at this, we're looking at it as farming as a whole, wherein Farm Bureau has this program called RAMP that is set up to individualize our farming operations and help farmers in ways that their operation needs help. It looks at their risk, their management. What are ways that they can grow? Can they grow vertically? What are some ways that you feel like the RAMP program can help, Trent?
So I'm not really familiar with the RAMP program, but you know, your comment, Sydney, about a potato dump, I saw something similar to it in a dairy in Washington where they had a bunch of wet distillers grains and it was piled up high. And if anybody's familiar with the dairy industry, you got to really watch how you're feeding wet distillers grains. You don't have the complications with the dry distillers grains. So why was the dairy feeding it? Well, because they were getting it for 1 cent a ton. It was literally a dump of brewery waste and ethanol waste. And so where do they have the opportunity to market that? Well, they need to have an investment in some type of technology. We can't have byproducts unless we can invest in a way to make these byproducts that are practically worthless, to make them into something that's going to help everybody out. So I think that's what you're getting at with the Kickstarter grant, is how do we get these byproducts? And it requires a lot more research than private industries are able to do it.
You know, the one thing on that, Trent, the one problem we in farming have is a very big problem, is farms are not very big. We don't have millions and millions of dollars for research and development. We don't have $1 billion budget for this and that. Generally, we're talking very small amounts. But what I've started to see from some of these big corporations, whether it's a Google or an Amazon, is sometimes they seem to reach into some of these things. Maybe it's into ag a little bit. And maybe if we can convince them that we'll be more productive with the use of our commodities or things like that, I think we can get some of that private help on a large enough scale. Because the problem is, farmers, unless we have a huge cooperative, we do not have the resources in order to do that.
So I want to interject really quick because I'm pretty excited about what we're talking about right here. So Trent, you talked about byproducts. As a cattle producer myself, I am always looking for ways to increase my bottom line. And feeding those alternative foods, like we mentioned, the distiller's grain, would be heaven sent to my operation. And so maybe the solution for that is just simply using Farm Bureau to create a network that we can connect producers like myself with those who have excess beef stocks. And then I'm very familiar with the RAMP program, and they do a great job, but I will mention they're more into marketing like hedging. But as we build up our companies in all aspects, that makes agriculture stronger. And as we have a stronger agriculture, as we partner with other supporting ag companies like Monsanto or Elanco, we can show to these private investors like you talked about, Andrew, that we are strong and that there is a great opportunity for return on investment if you will invest in us. Brittany, what other ideas do you have to help us create new products?
Well, I think that you have to look at market trends, and right now, the consumer is voicing to us that they want to know where their food is coming from. They want to source out locally. I think that's a huge market, especially for most small farms, which 90% of American farms are small farm, family farms. So by saying, come to our farm, maybe you're growing products that maybe can't be large scale per se, like grain, but you might be reaching into more of a farmer's market field. But those are areas that you have to look at the local market and see what your market can sustain and what options are available with your economy and with your weather and things like that.
Brittany, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't really go back and look at the question though. I'm afraid we're getting on topic a little bit. The problem is we do that, all of a sudden we take away production from another farmer, and I'm afraid we're not helping agriculture as a whole as much. I think we have to go back to, we are
But
overproducing.
Andrew, 90% of farms are small family farms that can't, per se, grow 50 extra acres of potatoes to feed their 100 head of cows, because they may not have that. So I think that it's not necessarily off the topic, because it applies to 90% of American farms.
90% of farms are small,
Sure.
so we have to get our overproduction gone. And that's not going to get our overproduction gone. I understand that the small farmers can't go and make these big strategic partnerships. So that's why we have to use an organization like Farm Bureau to start the process there to get those going. Because overall, America as a whole, we're way overproducing the food that we need here. And so we can't just give it to another consumer. I just can't try to sell my potatoes to the guy down the street. I've got to figure out how to get them out of the country or into another avenue of the production chain.
Andrew, you bring up an interesting point about foreign trade. I had the amazing opportunity to go to the U.S. Wheat Marketing Center in Portland, and they do some great things. And what they do is they have equipment, and they bring in people from all around the world, especially Asia, and they teach them how to make ramen noodles. They're on modern equipment. Or they bring in people from Saudi Arabia, and they show them how to make their traditional bread with equipment. I had the opportunity to make tortillas and cookies and all kinds of things. And what's great is the entire time that they're talking about this production and how they can mass produce these products and make money by making these products more cost effective for their consumers, but they're advertising American wheat. Hey, we have these things in place. And when you think about China and Japan buying wheat from the United States, they buy it from us because we have a consistent product. It's much closer to Australia, and Australia could produce the wheat, but they're choosing to go to the United States to get the wheat because of our consistency. And so there's a great opportunity.
I agree, Trent. I think that we need to look at this in a more of a global perspective as well, where we can actually send our products out. How do we get them out there and keep them to where they're still in a healthy state, as well as pay for all the shipping and things like that. But there are countries and nations that are starving right now, and we have such an abundance. So how do we make this food to the hands that need it in an economical way?
To answer your question, Brittany, you've got a good one. I heard a comedian once that said that America does a couple things better than the Chinese. One of them is to buy Chinese products, and the other is to sell Chinese products. And they want their shipping containers back. And if we could ship them something, a high-quality product that they'll like. I had the opportunity to visit a cranberry farm, and you think about the cranberry producers. When I was a little one, you saw cranberry sauce at Thanksgiving and some cranberry juice that you never drank. Now, cranberries are everywhere. You have craisins. With their marketing campaign, with their ads, those two guys that were in the cranberry bottle were more recognized than any other TV personalities except for Flo from Progressive. And what are they doing? They're working and developing these craisins, and they're finding out that people in Asia really enjoy craisins.
So
there's the opportunity.
So we've had a lot of great discussion about marketing and marketing our products. I kind of want to bring it back to the question that we have been given, and that talks about how do we create new products outside of the traditional food and feedstuffs. I think one great way, and we've mentioned this before, is to increase investment. And talking about this subject, we have to increase the federally funded research and development investment in agriculture. Since 2010, we have less than 30% of the public sector expenditures on ag R&D. That is one way as Farm Bureau that we could really push to increase the federally funded ag R&D. As a county president, my board can create an authentic relationship with our legislators and tell them, hey, this needs to happen to be able to be globally competitive, to be able to solve the issues of our surplus here in the United States. Let's reinvest in agriculture.
Sydney, on that though, I like the idea of more research, but there's one thing that I'm always against, and I think Farm Bureau's against it a little too, and that's giving more money to the government to go and do something. Because historically, we've always seen it takes too much time, too much money, and we don't get what we want out of it. How could we, instead of going to the federal government and asking Farm Bureau to ask the government to spend more money, how could we use Farm Bureau to ask in a private way or some other manner so that we're not trying to rely on the government to solve all our problems?
I think you're right. I think one of the things, though, as we ask for more public sector money, it needs to go to areas that Farm Bureau does support, like our extension. We have a great extension. I currently work for the University of Idaho Extension, and many of our extension agents are looking for new research opportunities and ideas. And as we promote increased funding in our extension to find specifically new products, I think that would be a great way to really narrow down. Going on your other question, we are not just producers in agriculture. We have a great support of other companies. And so I think Farm Bureau can do a great job by partnering with our supporting companies like Monsanto to make our voice larger. And by having a unified, large voice to these investors, we can make it look, we can show it is profitable. And this is something that should be invested in. Trent, you look like you have some ideas on this as well.
So, yeah, one particular thing, I get thinking about the ag education community that we have. And many times what happens, we have somebody that gets a bachelor's in ag education, they want to get a master's, and so they go and pursue a master's thesis. And a lot of times we see these studies that are coming out, and as an ag teacher, I say to myself, wow, that research had nothing to really benefit our particular profession. And I think so many times that we have that. Back to your comment, Andrew, sometimes money's getting wasted. But what we really advocate for is that every land-grant university that has, say, a department should have an advisory committee with people from industry and producers that can steer the research to come up with products. You can't market something unless you have the product. And that was the great thing about these cranberry producers, right? There was quite a bit of work, you wouldn't think so, but there was some work to come up with raisin that would work and that could be shipped and that would taste good. And so that kind of research needs to be steered from producers and people in industry. And once we have these advisory committees, then, we're looking at land-grant school, or land-grant universities, and we're looking at research institutions.
So Trent, I agree with you. I think we're on the same page there. My question would be at this point, though, is where do we start at in Farm Bureau to get that there? What resolution do we start with? Because I think one of the things we just got at, though, is are we being specific enough? While it would be good to spend more money on some of this research stuff, unless we're very specifically saying it needs to be for the innovation and new use of agriculture products. Because if we just throw more money, it's going to become more of these studies of why are there 2 rats in that area? Something like that. There's just too many studies, like you said, that there's no value. But what are some thoughts for resolutions from you?
I think that I like the idea that Sydney had at talking to the NCRS and RCS program, because each one of those areas is individualized. And I think that Idaho's needs are so different depending on where you're at in the state. And so the products that you're in, like, I don't want to put money into craisins because I'm not growing craisins in my community. That's just not an option for me. But if we were able to say, this is what we grow, help us in our area develop something, that would be more unique and more personalized.
One thing on that, though, Brittany, that while I agree with that, I always want to research potatoes. One benefit I have, and they always focus on it, so much of America grows corn and soybeans. And the reality is that they can find the outlet for those products. It's going to make it so that more people in our area want to grow those products, and then the products that I like, I can grow with less excess production.
So I want to jump in here. I'm kind of going to shift the thought. Andrew, you talked about what can the Farm Bureau do, what resolutions. I have this idea I want to run by you. So AFBF has this great program called the Ag Innovation Challenge, and they reward producers who are doing innovative products and processes, and that helps this question in of itself. But I kind of wanted to add our own Idaho spin on it. Many times, as I'm sure you guys know, as we sit for hours in the tractor or on a horse behind our cows, I get ideas. One of the greatest ideas came from my husband about maybe hemp-based baling twine. You know, we come up with these great ideas. So why not put a section on this Ag Innovation Challenge where we can do startup funds for product ideas? And by not just rewarding things that people are already doing, we can help spur more development right here within our own AFBF family.
So Sydney, would we go to the YFR and ask them to start pushing forward with that, or would that be something we do on the board level? I mean, so we want to move that forward. Where do we make our ask?
I think the YFR is a great way to start that. We are strong. I think sometimes we forget that even though we are young, even though we have a great deal to learn from those who are around us, we still have a voice. And as a YFR board, we can go together collectively and say, we would like to see this added on to the Ag Innovation Challenge. Brittany, what do you think about that? How else can we move forward with Farm Bureau to create new programs or competitions?
Well, I like your idea of competitions. Farm Bureau, especially the YFNR, is all over competitions. And I think so many of them relate to farmers who are good in front of people, or good with words, they're good on paper. But where you're saying more coming up with new ideas, maybe that lends to a competition on its own. Maybe more of an innovative farmer who likes to work in the dirt more would find success in that in YFNR.
You know, one quick thought there. What about even trying to task the state with somebody that maybe it's worth it, maybe it's not, but somebody that is in charge of helping innovations. Someone that if your husband has that idea, there's somebody on the state level, you call them and, you know, just as a sounding board, you know, or even something along those lines, something that can help us get off the ground. But Trent,
You got a great point, Andrew, but there's a lot more to product development. We need to have people that can help them with patents and find how to market it, because innovation goes by the wayside if nobody can actually profit from it. And so I know of a veterinarian that came up with an artificial hip for a horse. I didn't know they did that. Well, you know, his solution was, hey, this could work in people. What did he do? He went, he got 15 other partners that could help him navigate all of it, and they sold the hip to Johnson & Johnson. Finally, it came to the United States. But, you know, something mattered.
It sounds like making something like that. I like your idea, Brittany, of having it not have to be for the well-spoken, because you know what, I don't think I can do it on the front, but to make something that you can go on a state level, and we have some ideas, and they can go to a national level, and just think, if we had a program like that, I bet we could get the Googles and those sort of companies to show up at that, to look at those ideas and say, I think we should invest in that.
Well, if you implemented technology and had forums where people could bounce ideas off of each other, that opens itself up to a whole new world, a whole new perspective as you see farmers from across the nation connecting rather than just your local, state, or even county-wide and ours.
So let me bounce another idea. I'm full of them. So one of the other great things about YFNR is our connection with colleges. And as we have these ideas and these opportunities to create competitions, why don't we start connecting to these colleges that our collegiate YFNRs are in? Trey, you talked about need for master's thesis. You know, there needs to be research and development for them. So why don't we as a YFNR start partnering more with our collegiate universities and say, hey, we will we'll create a competition where any of your departments within the college can create a soybean-based product or process. And we will highlight that to our ag-based companies and the world. Like that in of itself would be pretty lucrative. Brittany?
It would. How would
Time has
you?
been called. Please prepare your closing statements. I ask that the audience remain silent for 1 minute to aid the competitors in their preparation. Please put down your pencils and in voluntary order, please stand and give your 1 minute closing statement.
Hey, thank you for the discussion that we had today. When it comes to marketing, we talked about some great things. The first thing that we need is we have to have a product. So how do we get this product? Well, that product needs to come through research, and that research should come through industry. We should have advisory committees. We should have the Farm Bureau have ag innovative challenges. And we need to be able to steer the research so that we can have a good product, whether it's a byproduct or a new use for an existing product. We need to be able to have a good price, and that comes through the research. We need to have a price that benefits all consumers. And then we need to be able to actually market that particular product. And that all requires some investment. A great example of what the Farm Bureau can do is what it's already doing, funding CAFE. The amount of research and the opportunities for new products is going to be incredible. And what do we have? We have a land-grant university that's working with private industry and having direction from the Farm Bureau.
I'm proud of American agriculture, and it kind of makes me sick to think that our hard work is not being utilized to its best abilities. We talked about many great ways that Farm Bureau can take an active role in this. One of them is creating a network for producers to be able to be connected to byproducts that we can then utilize in our own operations to increase our bottom line. We talked about creating new products through investment, whether that's publicly, through our extension with specific guidelines, or private investments through increasing our voice to show that we are profitable and the backbone of our country. Invest in us. We can also create new competitions, and we came up with many great ideas. I think the best thing that we can do is to not let this conversation die. Like I mentioned, we are strong. We are a strong voice in Farm Bureau. As IFNR, we can continue to promote these throughout Farm Bureau and the world.
We spent a lot of time discussing today the different ways that we can make big changes in commodity. However, I still feel like when we make small changes repeated over time, that's when big changes stay. That's when they really happen. And even though, yes, I think investing in all of these different commodities and using our resources, that's great. That's not going to help me next year when I have an abundance in my wheat. That's not going to help me. What's going to help me might be having the Farm Bureau's RAMP program come in, show me what I'm doing right, show me what I'm doing wrong. Let's diversify. Let's see what I can do next year. I think that more farmers need to know about that program. They need to be utilizing it because that is how they're going to find success next year. That is how they're going to survive this problem that we're having right now. That's how they're going to survive that right now.
I felt like this was a very productive conversation. I think that we did come up with some great ways to find new markets outside of the traditional feed food markets. Some of the things that I thought was really great, though, that we can start today is we can work with YFNR to work on improvements to this Ag Innovations Challenge. Somehow work on making that a lot bigger than it is and get it on the state and on the country level to be bigger, more important. I think that we can also, as we do that, work on getting some strategic partnerships with companies that are interested in developing new research in agriculture. And I know that if we show them that the opportunities are there, they will come and they will use that overproduction that we as American farmers produce every year.
Thank you. Let's show these competitors our appreciation for a job well done.